The bids are in. The gavel's dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine auctions, wine retail, and just wine. My name is Jeff McGurn. I am on the WineBid marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul Walker, the guru of Grand Cru. That's right. He's our wine expert. Paul, thank you for joining us. We'll be going over our wine auction recap in this episode, talking about everything that happened. And boy, was there a lot going on this last week at auction. Let's just start off with
a lot of stuff.
Yes, 05 going on Eshizo, which we had 5 of in auction. We had 5 of the 05. We got 14 bids, taking that from $100 to $200.
Eshizo. But yes, we did have 5. Rare producer, at least to me. And let me clarify and qualify. I'm not an expert, so that's why I didn't recognize this producer doing Guillaume Eshizo. And there were 3 bottle lots. Did you save a little bit if you bought the 3 bottle lot? You did. They started at $285. So you got a little bit off the 3 bottle lots, but those also got bid up. So
it's the Costco method. You buy more.
Exactly.
You get a better savings and a per unit price, right?
But your both lots got a lot of bids, and I can't do math quick enough to see if the 3 bottle lots ended up being a better deal since the singles ended up selling for $210?
Well, let's see. So
$210. They sold for $210 a piece, and then the 3-packs sold for
so it's $1,301.
$1,301, yeah.
For both 3-packs, so that's $216, right?
Interesting, yeah.
But $216 a bottle. So you actually would have saved money buying the bottles individually. So the word of the wise is go buy this wine, right? Put it in 3-packs and then sell it. And
exactly. Group it together and sell it.
And you can make $6 more per bottle. Right? And there's your investing advice for the day.
72 Montrose is kind of interesting because it's just a horrifically difficult vintage.
I mean, it only went for about, was it 50?
It didn't get, but it's
$2
that's pretty rough. I mean, it was still, 50.
I mean, to be fair, like $52 for a bottle of Montrose is a phenomenal price, right? I mean, it's a bad vintage. But like if you were getting an 82 Montrose,
I think if you drank that in 1975, you would probably still be disappointed. It's great, I think, for anniversaries and that kind of thing, birthdays. But 72 is my brother's birth year, so it's not an easy one to shop for. So 50. What was it? They ended up being like $53, $52 a piece. Still not bad.
It was a difficult year for everything produced that year, apparently. We've got this, let's see, this is kind of interesting. The 09 Peter Lauer, Eiler Coupe Riesling Fass.
I didn't even see those in the auction, actually.
I didn't see it either. We had 3 of those. They went from $25 to about $50 a bottle after 8 bids. So definitely some action. We had a lot of people watching those.
Well, they got a good amount of time on them too. Some of the other Lauer wines you've seen have been more like the sparkling wines or more recent releases. So those don't seem too bad. I don't think $50 each is, a lot of bidding action, but still, I think a fair price for something like that.
Yeah, I think the market found its price with that one. We had the 08 Domaine Hubert, L'Ami Saint-Aubin.
Jerry Archet Edouard. We mentioned this actually.
We did.
That's pretty wild. I mean, that's a big increase because I want to say we sold this wine recently and it didn't. Yeah, we did. We sold this wine fairly recently and it hammered at, I guess it was a little while ago.
$75 in December
last year.
I want to say, didn't I predict that this would go above $100 when we had this? I think last week where I was like, I think this is going to go above. This is going to break the.
I don't think you were talking about the L'Ami wines because there were a couple others as well, but did those get bid up too? I don't know if they did or not. I can't even tell if they're on the same page.
we had 17 Jean-Claude Bessois Bone Graves. 7 bids took it from 35 to 43. One of them went for 43. It looks like the other one for 44. So
the Boisset Bone Graves, yeah. That's 35 for Bone Grave. That's a great vineyard. Whoever the producer is, that's cheap. So yeah, that's still not a bad deal. That's not a bad deal.
No, not at all. Not at all. More Lauer.
Yeah, it didn't quite go to the same level as what was it? The other vintage was 2009. It's probably
09 versus 14.
Yeah,
so
14. Different designation, obviously. This is a fast 15. The other one, I think, was a fast 13. Anyway.
The other Montrose went up to 58. That was.
I know there's another 72. I didn't see that.
Another 72, 3 72s, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, this 2015 Colgin Cariad.
That's a big increase. 275 to 425. Wow.
275 to 6 bids took it to 425 from 275. I mean, when you look at the sales history of this, it's sold
275 earlier this year.
Yes, in January at the end.
Because the last hammer is where the reserve was. So yeah, and it was a little bit higher prior to that, but not much. So that's really wild. I wonder if this is following in the trend of Bond, where it's starting to climb back up again, and because I don't know, but the 15 Cariad, it was probably close to $400 on release. I mean, this stuff is really expensive. So that's pretty interesting to see. Who would have guessed, right? Looking at 275 earlier this year, there's no way, especially after it had been coming down progressively.
Who would have guessed? Whoever bought it for 275 in January. That's who would have guessed. Just look that up. Not us.
No, I'm talking about now because the market's still funny, right? Like people are still trepidatious and curious about where wine prices are going, and if you look at the history, it's dropping from 305. It was like 325, then down to 305, then down to 290, down to 275 earlier this year. Not even a year ago, and then boom, 425, and we're in the. I think what are people saying about the economy right now, Jeff? You're the wine investment expert here, so
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm not a wine investment expert, but I think nor am I any type of investment expert at all. What I will say though is that I personally I've read and heard varying things. Like I think some people really believe we hit a soft landing. That being said, like what's really interesting to me is, as we, because we look at like the stuff that gets a lot of action every week, right? And usually there's a nice mixture between some decently high end stuff and sub $100, sub $50 bottles of wine. What I will say is, and this is purely from my observation. I don't have any statistics to show this, but if I were to, I feel like, looking at auction recaps and things that have gotten a lot of bid and seen a lot of movement. 6 months ago, 9 months ago versus today, right? I feel like there's a lot more stuff at the lower end of the market. So sub 100, even sub $50 that's getting more action. What I have sort of theorized, and this is just my theory, is that as you see challenges in the broader economy, that you'll see folks, it's not that they're going to stop buying wine completely, but they may change their wine buying habits and go from, $200, $300, $400, $500 bottles to $50, $75 bottles. This seems to reflect that. But this is one observational data point and not like a study. But
there's there's a multiple bidders going after this particular wine. It's kind of curious. It's like, well, why is that happening when it's been slowly dropping in price up until
right? And I think you could potentially see that happen if people feel like they don't want to spend $1,500 on a bottle for whatever reason, and instead they're going to come down to $200 to $400, $500 a bottle. And then people who maybe work $200, $300, $400, $500 a bottle might be coming down to $70, $80, $90 a bottle. Maybe, again, it's hard to say, but like we had a tremendous amount of wine at all price levels, at all price points in auction last week, right? There was a lot of heavy hitters.
There was a lot of Colgan because I randomly went to look and see what else was here with, in Colgan in inventory this week, and there's a lot less than there was last week. So it looks like most of the stuff sold through. Because we mentioned, I think there was like a mini vertical, I think I mentioned, of Tixon Hill last week. And I think a couple of those definitely sold. There's 13, 14 still left, but a lot of it got sold.
But my only point was, I feel like there's a tremendous amount of activity at the lower end of the market right now. And I think you'll probably see increased activity. If that's the case, if everyone's taken one step down in terms of what they're going to buy, you'd see increased activity at the lower end of the market and increased activity in the middle of the market. I feel like I've certainly seen that in a lot of the bids I've made, because I buy a decent amount of wine in the $30, $40, $50 to $100 range. And I feel like, I don't know about you, Paul, but I feel like it just feels like I've seen a lot more activity, and I've been getting outbid a lot more on those bottles than I've seen if I bid on something that is more expensive.
Right.
Let's keep rolling. So we've got this domain, Armelay et Bernard Rion von Romani Les Chambres Videvine. We have 4 of them, 6 bids, from $50 to $66. So
you didn't destroy that title. Actually, you're getting better, I think, at these. Curious thing about this.
You can teach an old dog new tricks, Paul.
You can.
Possible.
This is I'm not the expert, but I believe Armel and Bernard Rion are related to the more famous Daniel Rion, but I'm not sure. I think it's another rare one. It reminds you of this Guillaume Echezot and some of these other wines, these Burgundies that were in last week that kind of fly under the radar. But anyway, not too surprised. That was a decent deal.
Here's some investing advice from me. Okay, are you ready? Wine investing advice.
I can't wait to hear that.
If in 2017 you had bought, let's say, 10,000 cases of 2010 Domaine Bellerude Grenier Vin de Savoie Les Alpes.
Okay, first of all, we need to run that through our filters so that the robots that are listening.
I give the phonetic pronunciation.
Les Alpes. Well, yeah. Do you know what happened? This is kind of a sad story as to what happened with.
No.
Anyway, we don't need to bring that up. But needless to say, wines are now much more rare than they used to be, and this is an especially rare, example because it's quite old. What is it? 13 years old now. But if this would be nearly impossible to replace.
If you had purchased 100,000 cases of this wine, you would have increased your money by almost 10x.
Yes, you're right.
In 6 years.
But this is not investment advice.
This is how I give investment.
I would say, go look for Belloir wines at an old sort of, maybe an old retailer up in the Alps somewhere, like near, Aosta or something, or somewhere in up in at the mountains. You might find some deals, but good luck with that, because I don't think there will ever even be 100,000 cases of any of these wines produced from all vintages. So, Giuseppe Rinaldi Vino Rosso Rosai, that one was bizarre. I did not see this last week either, and it's like that got bid up quite a bit. It wasn't expensive, but I've never seen the Vino Rosso Rosai. I don't even know what that means. It sounds like it's a rosé, but
I don't think that is cool. I think rosé was rosato in Italian, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but this sounds like a Latin version of rosé or something. I don't know. It's a red wine, clearly, or at least it was inspected as such. But anyway, that was a rare one for me.
Well, it is a red wine. It says Vino Rosso, so it is a red wine.
No, thanks for that translation.
2005 Domaine Guillaume Echezot, which got 6 bids, so you run 100.
Another example of that wine.
Just crazy, right?
Strange, because again, like there were other examples elsewhere in the auction that, especially in the 3-bottle sets, that cost more. But go figure. I think that's the thing to mention to bidders, is to always look for additional lots of the same wine, because you might be getting in a bidding war with someone and not realize that there is an identical lot below it. So as long as you filter alphabetically, or whatever, you'll be able to see the same wine, a different lot.
I can't tell you how many times I've been outbid on something only to go look at the lot and see like there's like 3 more bids after somebody outbid me. So like a ton of action. And then I go look and there's another lot that was at the original price. It happens all the time. I feel like I've even been a victim of like bidding on something or like, wait a second, there's another lot.
Exactly. It's happened to me for sure. Yeah. I've definitely noticed that there was another one.
Let's talk about these heavy hitters, shall we?
Okay.
Screaming Eagle 2020 3-bottle lot, Cabernet Sauvignon, OWC. One bid had it sold at $66.95.
Yeah. It's interesting. That one's kind of bouncing back and forth. It's been a little bit more. I don't know where that's going. Frankly, I think it's ultimately going to probably creep back up to where it was. Well, I mean, for over 8 a little while ago.
It was 8,060 in March. I mean, it's a
tricky vintage. So I think there might be some trepidation there, but who knows?
Well, look, this is one of those things where I hate to seek validation, but I think this also sort of validates the idea that there's some softening at the top end of the market. I mean, this is serious.
Not with Colgan Carrier in 2015, however, but
but I wouldn't call that the top end of the market in terms of price point, right? I mean, it's certainly, it's a great one.
They're in a short list of seriously expensive mailing list wine. That's
sure they're not.
Screaming, I think Screaming Eagle is in its own category.
Screaming Eagle and DRC, but I mean, this is a pretty big shift to go from $8,000 for a three pack OWC to $6,600. I mean, that is a pretty massive. I mean, what 15-20% reduction?
Yeah, it's a big change. But again, like I said, down the road, you wait 4, 5, 6, 7 more years. The 2020 will probably become more collectible because there was less of it. It's kind of like the 17, right? They only made magnums in 2017 because it was super limited. And I think with the 2020, I can't remember if they said there was less wine produced, and so you had to jump on the offer. I don't know. I'm not on the list, so I'm not sure. But I suspect that because this was such a crazy, difficult sort of, a lot of people didn't make red wine in Napa in 2020, probably in other counties. And so ultimately it will probably be worth quite a bit more. So it's interesting to see that it's following these kind of volatile market trends. I don't know if you'd call them volatile or trends because I'm not an economist whatsoever, but it's very interesting to see that happen. And then you got other stuff going crazy. You got
Harlan. Well, you had
Harlan's promontory keeps getting pushed up. The
Harlan got pushed
prices
up.
keep going up.
That Harlan was in January. It was 45.60 for the 2014 Harlan Estate 6-ball lot OWC. And that's gone up, $120, right?
Yeah.
So it's not massive movement, but it's not softening.
No, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of wildness happening with some of these. Like Promontory kind of stands out to me more than almost anything else because there was a 2010 3-bottle case that hammered. Well, it's funny. It hammered at $22.95 back in March, and last Sunday was just over 2,055. But prior to that, it never eclipsed 2,000. So I think, those wines are continuing to go up and up and up.
We had 2 bids on a 15 3-liter double mag of Margaux.
That's an awesome bottle. I remember looking at that.
Yeah. 45,
that was one of my picks, actually.
Went from 43.40 to 45.40 is where it ended up hammering. 2 bids on 2 bottles of 05 Costa Rica Corton Charlemagne for, those ended up going for $4,080.
Right. They were over 5, I think, not too long ago. So that's another example where it's a little softening going on at the super high end. But, now then you look at 2010 McDonald.
No, they were up to 6,200 as early as March of this year.
6,200. Wow.
I mean, again, you're seeing That's a substantial softening. I mean,
Yeah, that's just
30.
that's just in a few months. That's less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months. You're still a little bit more than 6 months in like 5 days. But your point is well taken. That like,
you're right. Yeah.
But even so, like 6 months, you're seeing a 33% decline in the price of that coach. Now, will that Costa Rica Corton Charlemagne come back up?
I think so. I think it will. Ultimately, it'll be worth quite a bit more because it's such a phenomenally rare and exceptional wine. You look at the price difference between where it was, years ago, and I think it'll go up, continue to increase, I would imagine.
We've got
did you see the 2010 McDonald? That was pretty impressive.
No.
There were a couple of those in.
What did that go
Weird
for?
Because okay, I guess I'm wrong because I looked up the history, and it looks like in November a bottle sold for $21.30, but I think that was a serious anomaly because there were people, I think 2 guys battling it out. I'm pretty sure there were guys. I'm not just generalizing, but then 2 bottles hammered last weekend at $15.10. So I don't know. I mean, it's still shot way up from where it was before. It was under $1,000 last year. Then, that stuff is still very hot.
I mean, look, it's still extremely hot. We had 15 Petrus sell for $3,200, beautiful condition. The last time we'd seen that was 19, and it sold for $2,519. So some movement there, but it's hard to say. With those, it's hard to say because they don't come along every single day. So it's difficult to say from January to today, what was the big price differential, right? Without looking at other auction houses. We had a mag of Emmanuel Rougeau, Von Romani, Croix Parenteau. We had 3 of those. What?
Not Rougeau. There's a different name there.
Rouget sold for $32.90. The 01 Screaming Eagle Cabernet Sauvignon sold for $2,980. That was in obviously the 750 format. And that's another one where, I mean, you saw it, $29.80 in 2022, $29.95 in 2021. So any gains that may have been made, that thing has been flat, right? Yeah. So for that particular vintage anyway. A lot of Screaming Eagle in auction, by the way. 2012 for $3,005. 2013 Manger Muneret Chazot 12 bottle lot.
Manger
Muneret 12 bottle lot OWC sold for $2,640, right? And then we had, why don't you walk us through some of the records that were set?
Yeah, there's some pretty astounding things. There's some Giacosa Folletto Reserva 96 at 705. One of those Tixon Hills I mentioned. There was a bunch of Colgan in last week, and one of the 18 Tixon Hill hammered at 680, which is impressive. Now that I believe is more than the mailing list cost. I don't think they are over $600. I think they're somewhere around $500. But anyway, that is surprising to me because Colgan has not done that. So it kind of confirms my suspicion that it's following the bond trend a little bit. 92 Maya hammered at 635. 14 Ligier Bel Air Von Romani Chaume at 1065. So another 4-figure wine from Ligier Bel Air. And 18 Roumier Chambolle Musigny Village hammered at 425. Let's see. Domaine Loire Volnay Santino at 1900. Another Spanish record, it looks like 2020 Pingus hammered at 725. It's quite impressive. An old 64 Conterno Barolo hammered at 400. Actually, doesn't seem that bad. 1,600 acre Wraith Cabernet hammered at 625. And then, Jérôme Prévost continues to go up. The Facsimile Rosé hammered at 455. So, lots of action last week.
Lots of action last week at a lot of different places in the market. And that just about wraps up our recap. Stay tuned later in the week when we'll have some recommendations coming out with WineBid's Finally Hammered. This has been Jeff McGurn and Paul Walker wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.